Okay, we're going to get started. We're going to switch things around a little bit today. We have a very special visitor, our Maharat intern, Emily Goldberg Weiner. So it's wonderful to see you. And so we're actually going to hear Dvar Torah from Emily first, and then afterwards, Rabbi Cooper is going to come up with some of the magic music that he always comes up with to help us move into Shabbat. So I don't know if many of you probably have not had a chance to meet Emily yet. She did come last year. We had a Shabbaton. Wow, it's crazy to remember that we were able to have a big Shabbaton with many students and graduates of Yeshivat Maharat. It was probably actually just like a month or two. I think it was last January, so it was or December. So it was only a month or two before the pandemic hit. So, but many of you were able to go to a class that she taught. My wife Sarah went to it, and she told me I was in and out, but people really connected to her Torah, to her teaching, and so we were really excited to be able to invite Emily to come back as our Maharat intern. So I just got her we just shared the first time that she's teaching publicly. Emily was born and raised in South Florida, but moved to New York City in high school. She's a Wexner Graduate Fellow and currently works as a rabbinic intern at the Columbia Barnard Hillel. She recently completed the Innovation Fellowship at the 92nd Street Y. She graduated from Muhlenberg College with a study of religion and Jewish studies. Exploring tradition and stories of others. One thing I saw that I thought was very interesting in her bio, she works at nursing homes with residents living with dementia, as well as the Lehigh County Jail, where she facilitated tech studies for men and women. I just think it's so beautiful to take your Torah knowledge and all of your training and help people who are vulnerable, who are in different situations in life where they don't have as much access to Torah, and just thinking about how that's really your essence and who you are, to take that and bring it out and help engage people and lift people up through your beautiful Torah. So we're really looking forward to having you as an intern. Obviously, this year is going to be a little bit challenging, but we will figure out a way to have you in person, hopefully. But we thought this would be a nice way to start off, to have a Erev Shabbat Dvar Torah from Emily. So without further ado, our Maharat intern, Emily. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Antin. Thank you. And it's so nice to meet all of you, but for those who I might have met back in January, which feels like a short eternity ago, it's really nice to see you again. I stayed with Zahava and her family, and I was like a very good walk to the shul. So I know exactly how to get to Beth Shalom from that house, only that house. But it is so lovely to be back, even amidst these like really crazy circumstances. And I'm so excited to get to know this community throughout the coming year and period of time. And it's such a blessing, such a zechut to be here in your Kabbalat Shabbat space. For those who I could see in face to face, it's so lovely to see you. And to those who are probably still Shabbos prepping and are off camera, I have full sympathy with you as well. We will get through this. So I want to talk about the completion of reading the cycle of Torah, even though we didn't necessarily do that in a traditional form this year. But when I think about a completion of another cycle of Torah, I think about the books on my shelf that I read and reread. I know their plots and I know the characters, they speak to me, their warmth on the text of their well-worn pages. There's the page turners, the slower chapters, they're all bound in their used paperback editions. And I promised I wouldn't keep buying them on Amazon, but I've broken that promise too many times. 5781 will be the year I do not spend all of my money on books. The Torah similarly glimmers in the holy bookcases of the Aron, eager to be celebrated by its readers. The Rambam explains that there's 3 crowns given to Bnei Israel. The crowns of the Torah is the first one, the Kahuna, which is like, the Kohanim and Aaron's priesthood, and Malchut, which is David's kingship. The latter 2, the Kahuna and the Malchut, are designed to people. But what about the Torah? Mishnah Torah answers Rambam's work. Keter Torah Hari Munach ve'omed b'mochan l'chol Yisrael. Kol mi she'yirtzeh yavo v'yitel ha'lemadata she'keter Torah gadol mishinehem. The crown of Israel Behold, it lies ready within the grasp of everyone. Whoever wants it may come and take it, and be instructed that the crown of Torah is greater than all of the other ones. The crown of Torah, according to Maimonides, is not only better than the priesthood and the kingship, but it's accessible. We can all get it. We can all reach it, and we can put it in our Amazon carts. And as we celebrate this esteemed crown of Torah by running towards it, wrapping our arms around it, and dancing through our shul aisles and onto the streets, and this is how we celebrate it usually when we finish reading it. I won't speak for all of you, but some of us break all boundaries with the Candymen of the pews, getting sugar highs faster than it takes for us to even begin hakafos, and maybe I'm just speaking for myself, but I befriend those Candymen and women during this time. And amidst the hecticness, the Jews embrace the completion of Torah with full zrizut. Zrizut is like an eagerness to run towards fulfilling mitzvot. It's part of a longer phrase, zrizim l'magdimi l'mitzvos, to this eagerness to fulfill a mitzvah. That's like when you have a bris first thing in the morning. You do it from this zrizut, this eagerness. And that's because we're sharing our message of pride to the world. The Torah is in our hands, it's etched into our minds, the scrolls are well worn and well loved. This is the Simcha Torah that we should have called precedented times, whereas holding hands and sharing air was the means of Simcha, where the Torah was negative 10 feet apart from us, and it was literally in our arms, and celebrations like that called for boldness in our joy. But we have passed this milestone, like countless other milestones, with compromise, distance, and for safety of everyone around us, bereft of one another. I want to use the Torah that is so accessible to us as a way to shift our boldness from the Aharon to the bookshelf. Rather than shamelessly dancing in circles, perhaps this time can allow us to step back and reflect on the boldness for those for whom we dance. May we think of the confidence of Abraham and Sarah literally running to welcome strangers in their tents. May we think of the fervor of Hannah, who davened for a son like no high priest was watching. May we think of Ruth, who insisted on cleaving to her mother-in-law and the Jewish faith, not sure which one's more impressive. May we think of Yalta, who spilled hundreds of barrels of wine in a fearless holy rage in the Talmud. And without the hectic noise of this community, we have a moment to approach our texts with complete intimacy, reading and rereading their stories to our heart's content. While the Torahs must remain dressed and distanced, the Torah of our bookshelves and photo albums can find homes in our grasp and unmasked lips. Simcha Torah in unprecedented times calls for us to seek out the everyday wisdom that has become like Torah to us. Stories of justice, coming of age, compassion are wellsprings of God's midot too. We're invited to dance not only with our forefathers and mothers, but also with Atticus Finch, Ramona Quimby, and the Giving Tree. Also in the holy Aharon of my living room is a picture of my grandfather, Stuart Wagner, Alava Shalom. He was playing the saxophone with gusto in this picture, and the picture was taken from the bottom of the saxophone going up in like a very artsy, cool photo way. And he played that very saxophone at James Madison High School when during one Friday night football game, he boldly strutted over to the cutest cheerleader on the football team and asked her out. She responded open-endedly, saying she was busy that weekend, but he should try calling her another week. He took that as a rejection and proceeded to date, marry, and live a full life with my grandmother. Years later, when I asked him what he liked about that cheerleader, he smiled and said, she was known to kick the highest on the team. They called her Kiki because of it. Kiki Bader. My eyes widened. Grandpa, you could have been married to a Supreme Court justice? He smirked and crossed his arms. Actually, Ruth Bader Ginsburg could have been married to a refrigerator technician in South Florida. My grandfather's boldness and love is too part of the canon of Torah for which I dance year after year. If you haven't had the opportunity to bring the Torahs into your own living room yet, this new cycle of Kriyat HaTorah is the perfect moment. Bereshit introduces us to the boldness of Adam Harishon, the first man ever created. His action of eating the fruit from the tree of knowledge, while considered the first act of disobedience and a huge sin and a huge avera, can actually from a different angle be seen as the first embodiment of Zrizi Makdimin LaMitzvot, racing to fulfill a mitzvah. Reb Mimi Fagelson in LA, she paints a beautiful image of this moment that Chava bit from the forbidden fruit of the Eitz Hada'at. After Eve ate from the tree of knowledge, she said she started to die. She told Adam that she was afraid to die alone. And Adam said to her, You don't have to die alone. I'll die with you. It is for this reason that he too ate from the tree of knowledge, so that they would die together. I love that. Adam's willingness to take that bite of that fruit was to ensure that his partner would not feel alone. He did that mitzvah of zrizut in fulfilling the Ratzon Hashem, the will of God, to eat the fruit and making sure that his wife would not suffer alone in mortality. This story gives me chills every time I hear it. And I don't even need to imagine what kind of eagerness for mitzvot that would look like today. All of us have replaced our hakafos around the Sefer Torah with 6 feet apart hakafot around our living Torahs, the most vulnerable loved ones in our midst. Simchas Torah in these unprecedented times calls for us to expand our definitions of Torah that we run to. It challenges us to channel the zrizut we feel for our Torah scrolls to the other reminders of our tradition and wisdom, be it the memories of our resilient grandparents, the beginning parshiot in our chumashim, or even Atticus Finch. I bless you all, and I hope you bless me too, with the opportunity to run closer to different forms of Torah that we might not expect, while our precious Sefer Torahs are sitting in their aron, safe, free of COVID, please God. And may we help recognize each other during these strange times and understand where the hakafot, our safe hakafot, can be best embodied. Good Shabbos, everyone.